Welcome to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't, a podcast dedicated to helping you create the relationship you truly want.
Hope as healing, building emotional resilience in you and your relationships. When life feels heavy, uncertain, or overwhelming, hope can feel like a lifeline. Hope isn't just wishful thinking. It's an emotional force that adds meaning to all of our lives. It's the quiet but powerful belief that things can improve, challenges can be faced, and that growth is possible. Hope is the fuel that keeps us moving forward, even when the path is unclear. Hope is such an important part of therapy. And I think that hopelessness is such an obstacle. So if you've ever wondered how to keep moving forward when things feel stuck, or how to reignite the spark of possibility in your relationship, this conversation is for you. Because hope isn't just a nice idea. It's a vital ingredient for well-being, connection, and love that lasts. In relationships, hope plays an equally vital role. Every couple goes through ups and downs, but it's hope that allows partners to believe in repair, renewal, and reconnection. Without it, small cracks can turn into wide divides. With it, challenges become opportunities to deepen understanding and strengthen bonds. Hope isn't something that just magically appears. It's something we can actively cultivate, whether through reframing how we see challenges, practicing gratitude, reducing negativity, holding space for future possibilities. We can intentionally strengthen hope individually and as a couple. And the more we practice, the more natural it becomes. Lucky us. In June 2025, it was reported that the University of Missouri researchers, led by Megan Edwards and Laura King, had demonstrated that boosting hope could be a game changer for mental health and resilience. They used 6 studies with more than 2,300 participants from diverse backgrounds, and the findings consistently demonstrated that only hope consistently predicted a stronger sense of meaning. Today's guest to help us learn more about the value of hope in our lives and relationships is Dr. Julia Garcia. She is the psychologist and author of The 5 Habits of Hope, just published this October. For nearly 2 decades, she has worked with those facing life's toughest moments, helping them break through fear, doubt, and hopelessness to build lasting habits of healing and hope. Dr. Julia has done TEDx presentations and interactive workshops to prove that hope isn't just something you feel. It's something you practice, one habit at a time. She additionally hosts a live audience talk show style podcast, The Journey with Dr. J, which blends conversation and poetry. Thanks so much for joining me today. I so appreciate it because I think hope is so crucial as a part of therapy. Julia, thank you for coming.
Oh, I'm so excited to get into this and to be here with you.
So please share with my audience why hope is so often the missing ingredient in lasting love and strong relationships. And I especially appreciated you addressing the 3 imbalances in our culture. I love context.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Whew, let's take a deep breath real quick because this is a big one. All right.
All right.
We know. I want you to think about a moment or a time where you felt utterly and completely hopeless in a relationship. Go back there. Okay. Some of you are like, I ain't trying to go back there. Okay. Where are you taking me? All right. But if you can remember, if I were to ask you, what is hope? What does it mean to you? Most likely you're not going to tell me it's a cognitive science. Okay. You're going to tell me or take me back to a feeling, what it feels like. And that is why it's so important when we start any of these conversations, we remember that at the end of the day, like, hope is a feeling. We know when we have it, and we feel it when we don't. And when we don't have hope, we're not going to go deeper in our relationships. We're not going to try again. We're definitely not going to trust and forgive. We are not going to find out what we're capable of as a couple or in any type of relationship when we are withholding hope or when we feel an absence of it. It is at the core of connection because it allows us to see possibilities. And how boring would a relationship be without some spontaneity, some possibilities, some growth, some evolvement? And so when we don't have hope, we take out that core connection that keeps us excited.
That's right. It is. It's so true. I think hope is an essential part of happiness. Would you agree?
Studies would actually say that without hope, you definitely are going to become more unhappy. So yes, you are correct in that. Studies and research will affirm that for us. But the interesting thing for me is that we don't have to be happy, though, to have hope. So the reverse isn't true.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you don't have to be like super happy to have hope, although having hope can help you become happier.
Yes, all right. I really loved you talking about navigating our emotional terrain. That is so important to learn. What are feeling detours? I thought that was a great way of putting it.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I'm a professional at feeling detours. So I learned this one firsthand, as well as seeing firsthand that other people do this too. I thought it was just me, that I will do anything other than feel something. I will distract myself, doom scroll. I will devalue the feeling, be like, it's not a big deal, push it aside. I will get defensive about the feeling. So we start to do absolutely anything other than feel. We go on these detours and we can distract ourselves. All of those things. Have you ever been there before?
Absolutely. No
What's
question.
your go-to detour?
Probably reading a book. Fiction.
Okay.
Because it reduces stress 61%. And so if
My
I'm
book is
really
nonfiction. Is that like 62%?
I don't think so, because
No,
you have
not
to
at all.
be in an alternative universe.
I made that up, y'all. Don't listen to me.
But I think it's always helped when childhood was difficult. And so being able to read fiction and be in a different world is really helpful.
And that's a beautiful distraction. That's a beautiful way, because sometimes it's not safe to visit the feelings, right? So that's a great one. It's when the distractions become harmful that we want to be aware. Like for me, I would use drugs or get blackout drunk or be in unhealthy relationships and engage in superficial relationships and devalue myself. And I would do anything to distract myself from real things in a harmful way, not a helpful way. So that's a really important distinction that you just made.
I just heard Elizabeth Gilbert speak about her new book, and it's a little too self-helpy, but she really does talk about her feelings in the lecture, that being more honest about her feelings, and that she was. And I remember Eat, Pray, Love did not stir me the way it did everybody else, because I was like, yeah, you're rich. You bought more dishes in Italy than I could even think about. And she goes from one relationship to another. Well, what her new book about is being a sex addict and a love addict. And that is a way to detour feelings. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think what you shared that she shared was what is essential for having hope is honesty.
And that's what she talked about, being more honest about her feelings and who she was. And I think that is what gave me pause from her book. It just seemed a little too la-di-da,
Yeah.
Oh, I found the perfect person, which I dumped in the next book, and then et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, honesty about your feelings. So what are hope blocks that get in the way of our feelings? And how can couples break these blocks down together?
I think hope blocks are external. They're like things that happen to us. Maybe they're big traumas, tiny traumas, or they're internal. They're the emotional thought patterns. For me, that's what wore me down the most. The external things were really scary and really difficult, and I had to navigate those differently. But I had to start in the emotional blocks. So the emotional blocks can sound like maybe you've said it to yourself, maybe you've heard it. I'm not good enough. I can't. I will never forgive them. We'll never get better. Just these thought patterns and these cycles, and what we can do as couples and in relationships with friends even, or work people, is we can interrupt the thought patterns, and we have the ability to create different emotional habits and start to retrain our mind and rebuild even new neural pathways in our mind. We have the ability to interrupt these thoughts and replace them with things that maybe can be more helpful towards our aligned goals. So it's coming back to what are our values and goals in this relationship, and how can we replace. So early on, when I started learning about addiction, I discovered something very helpful for me. Somebody was like, hey, if you say I'm never going to do a drug again, or I'm never going to drink a sip of alcohol again, that never can be really freak you out. It can just be really intense. So instead of saying I'm never going to do something, I'm going to stop something, instead of stopping a habit, we replace them. And I learned that really early on, that was very valuable for me emotionally, to replace things with things that I actually believe, or things that are actually true, or other things about me that maybe got the back seat. Like I could say I am a failure. So that's a thought that will go on and on and on in my mind. So I can interrupt it with something like, I'm also really brave. And so that starts to add in a little bit. So now my thought patterns are swinging a little bit. So maybe they're not circling. Maybe I just got it to go in a different direction a little bit. And then we can build from there.
One of the things I used to tell people to do is to wear a rubber band and not snap it to hurt yourself or deliver welts, but to actually interrupt those negative self-talk, because it is so destructive and it's so hard to get it interrupted. Yeah. But you're right. When you balance it with I'm brave, it creates room to breathe.
Yes. Let's do a physical exercise activity with our listeners right now. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's start by saying, like, with the thought that's going to guide this is like, we all hold on to a lot of things. We hold a lot of things, whether it's pressures, resentment, fears, worry, stress, whatever. We hold on to a lot of things. So we're going to do a representation of that. So if you can grab your hands, okay, grab your hands. And if you're able to, make two fists with your hands. Think about something you're holding on to. Okay.
I have arthritis. Go ahead.
Okay, you don't, if it physically hurts, don't do this, okay? You can just think through this process, okay? So if you think about something you're holding on to, something you're struggling with that you're holding on to and you're not letting go of, right? I want you, if you can, to think about how you could squeeze really tightly. And if you were to go through your whole day doing this, you go eat a meal, you go give someone a high five, you get on your phone and scroll, it would be very difficult with your hands holding on to something, right? But
yeah.
Some of us are stubborn. We'll figure it out. We'll use our tongue for the phone or something. We will figure it out, okay? Because we are very determined and resilient people. So that's not always a bad thing. But in this case, it's going to be exhausting. So you can do it. So on the count of three, we'll go ahead and let go. 1, 2, 3, let go. What's the immediate feeling you feel?
Light. Yeah.
Room. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. More space.
Yes. Which really encompasses the heart of where I think we start to get disconnected in our relationships, is we're all holding so many things differently, but at the same time, we're holding them separately. So we're holding in a lot, and there's not really room for compassion and grace and respect and forgiveness and calmness and patience, because we're holding a lot of stuff. Okay? So we don't got room for you too. All right, because I got a lot of stuff for me. I don't got enough for you. Or maybe what I'm holding is all my worries for you. So I can't even hear you. And so when we let go, the number one thing that I hear people say when I do this exercise in my speaking keynote events is relief. Which for me is it's an emotional habit of releasing, and it becomes a practice. And that's why it's something that I've put in my life, because I know that I'm tempted to do the opposite.
Yes.
That's usually
That's
what
right.
guides me on what I need to do in an emotional habit, is what is my tendency, and then how can I do the opposite. That's really all the habits are the opposite of what I actually naturally do. I've had to learn and practice them.
And my nature is Gestalt, which is about duality. So I'm always the yin and the yang. I'm always working with the missing piece. So I like that a lot. I think that's a really great way to help people immediately, because you're right. We do hold on to a whole hell of a lot. We do.
And it
It's
holds us back.
Yes, it interrupts us from being full with who we can be. And that's the beauty, is being able to have more range to who you are.
I love that range. That just
Yes.
opened up just possibilities in my mind. Just that word. And
Yes.
wordplay can be really powerful too, because it can help us shift perspectives. Because those thought patterns can be the same words over and over. It's like, come on, get a new day job. You're saying the same thing to me that you've been saying since I was 10 years old. Give me some new words here. So that word range, I'm going to take that and I'm going to keep using it.
Oh, feel free. I'll probably borrow your hope blocks. I
Yes,
think
take
that's a
'em.
really cool way to do it. Would you share about your belief that we all need to create a space for hope?
Oh, man. This one, it wasn't a personal belief. It's something I saw and witnessed and experienced. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work with people from every city almost in this country. I mean, I've been to places where I lost service getting into their town, and it was like a town of like a couple hundred people. I've been to major cities. I've worked in prisons. I've big universities, huge organizations, classrooms of all kinds, gyms, basements, you name it. And I've seen people up close and personal, and in a way that I feel like our society doesn't see people or experience people, which has really reshaped my heart and what's inspired my work and to keep doing this work, is because I leave these places, these events that I'm doing, and I would always ask myself, if I didn't give that space, would they ever have it? And really what I feel like I was doing is, I'm a professional speaker. I've been speaking for nearly 2 decades, but I don't really speak. I just create space. And that space kind of shifts and shapes differently depending on the community and the topic and things like that. But the root and the heart of it for me is that when we don't have a space, we don't have that release. And if we don't have a release, then we hold on so much to the point where our bodies physically can't hold on anymore. And I learned this the hard way. When I was younger, I was holding on so many feelings because I thought the worst thing you could call me was weak. So I was not going to be vulnerable with you. That was not going to happen. You were never going to see me cry. And so I held on so much for so long that I would get blackout wasted on drugs and drinking, and I wouldn't even know what would happen. But I would wake up. Usually I was in trouble or next to someone I didn't even know. And it got to a place where my feelings were coming out. They were going to come out because they couldn't be contained anymore. So we get to a place where we don't have a process to process our feelings. And that's where my journey initially started. And then when I started working professionally and then pursuing my education, I realized, oh, shoot, a lot of us don't have a manual to process our feelings. We're just holding them all in and walking around like acting like nothing. And it's hurting our relationships. I was unable to be authentic or have depth in a relationship because I didn't even have a blueprint that it was possible.
Yeah, I think emotions are mysterious and confusing, and they require a real ability that we're not taught. Years and years ago, I always wanted to go teach in high school, even if it was just an assembly, just to help kids think about their emotions. And because we get swamped. What you're describing is being swamped and buried in them, and then hanging on to, okay, I'm just going to be tough. And vulnerability is the opposite, which is the crucial building block for trust and relationships. So it's really, and when I think about my work with women in prison, then the hopelessness, Eve Ensler said that we keep people frozen in their mistakes. And I think that's what prison does. She used to teach a writing group in the federal prison for women in New York State. And there's something about the hopelessness that's part of prison. And when I would go to Pennsylvania, Muncie, and work with women that were coming out, it was really about establishing bits of hope about a path that could be different. You're right. Hope is so crucial in so many ways, and so many people don't find a path to it.
You know, what's interesting in you saying that and bringing up your work in working with inmates and even your desire to work in a high school, and where I sometimes find hope the most is in these places that are perceived to be like people are lost causes or things like that. And honestly, two of the places where I found the most sincere hope I'd almost ever experienced. One was in a prison working with men who were serving mostly life sentences for things like murder and all kinds of things. And the joy and the gratitude they had was insane. They had this hope that couldn't be caged or contained, even in confinement. And what I realized was that they had been caged before they got into prison because they had lived hopelessly. That nothing, it doesn't matter. There's no cause and effect because there was this identity associated with, I would say, despair. Don't matter. Nothing's going to change. This is just how it is. This is what I got to do. This is who I am. And these identity statements started to shape the decisions that they made, how they saw themselves. And when they became hopeful, it was like they actually found real peace and joy inside of prison. It was mind-blowing for me. And similarly, working with, when I first started, I worked a lot with youth in like detention centers or in schools where they were alternative schools, where they were maybe suspended or they had a child. So alternative programs to help them still graduate. Sometimes they would meet at night, in the morning, and I had a team and we would go in often and work with this specific demographic. And it was a place where people were like, these kids are not going to listen to you. They're going to run out of the room. They're going to probably throw something at you. And I'm always freaking out. I'm like, oh man, this is going to, what am I going to do? And the responsiveness of like how much they were just holding on, that they just needed a space to. They may not have even said anything, but the fact that we were saying real stuff and being honest, it created the possibility that maybe they can too. And that is hope right there.
Yep.
Changes your posture,
That's
changes
right.
everything.
Yes, it does. There are 5 habits of hope, according to you. So let's begin with the first one, which is reflect. What is this about?
Oh, reflection. The habit of reflection was the hardest for me to start because I like my feeling detours, but is where we can take ourselves back to something maybe I like to say that you're struggling with or you have struggled with, but not staying there. We're not going to ruminate and hang out and camp out and like overstay our welcome. We're just going to reflect, because this helps interrupt our, maybe if you're like me, your desire to not reflect, to not feel. So this will help us interrupt that. So one of the things I say is like, I always have a prompt. I call them a feeling framework. And so I would just say you can fill out the prompt, I struggled because. And it allows you to start to identify things. And that can take you there without you having to like stay there, because we're going to go to another prompt next.
Oh, yes, that's good. Yeah. And it is about looking back to understand more about your feelings and the path that they brought you to.
Yeah, I think it's
Say
no,
it better.
that's perfect. I would actually, maybe the best way is, do you want to try and complete it, the sentence? You could think of something in the past.
I have struggled with my adolescent daughter and not losing my temper.
I got 2 young ones under 10. I get that. Okay. And now let's do habit number 2, if that's okay. Which is the habit of risk. So can you identify a feeling you have around that struggle, or multiple feelings?
Risking looking at myself and my anger and how quick I use it to protect me.
So if you were to complete the sentence, I felt, what would you say?
I felt frustrated. I felt powerless. I felt confused.
Is it okay if we keep going? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 3 main reasons I've learned from hearing from people themselves of why they struggle and hold on to it and don't say things. And one of the reasons is they don't want to look weak. Another reason is they don't want to be a burden. And another top reason is they don't think anyone cares. If you were to finish this sentence, I stayed silent about this struggle because, what would you say?
I didn't stay silent. I talked about it a lot with my girlfriends and my husband, because I really know that sharing helps me rein in and understand the feelings and the counterbalance. And I actually started talking softly, which was really different, because I'm kind of a yeller. But I started talking very softly. And I think it helped a lot. So because I shared my frustration and my confusion with the people that love me and support me, I was able to do something different.
You are jumping. It's like you already know the habits, because the next one is receiving, and that's being able to identify what support would look like or feel like for you. So the prompt would be, I needed. And
I needed support to be able to move through the feeling of frustration and powerlessness.
And you even identified, you went a step further and listed what support, who that support would be, and how you would get their support by talking and being able to maybe speak honestly without filtering yourself. Yeah.
Judgment. And without judgment, that they would not have judgment and would help me, which gave me room to breathe, which gives me, I hadn't thought about this, but the hope to do something different.
Which is the 5th and final habit of repurposing. It's taking frustration and reshaping it, giving it a new purpose. I like to think my mom has always, she has 6 children, she has like 13 grandkids, and she worked full time, and money wasn't a thing that we really had. So she would go to garage sales and yard sales and things, and she would take furniture and then she would like reclaim it. And it would look so beautiful. You would never know. But she would take things that people would throw out or that they would disregard as beautiful or worthy of having a place. And she would reclaim it, and she would give it a new purpose. And that's what I like to think about, what we might think are dirty or ugly feelings. Like, I had so much anger for so long. So I hear you when you say frustration or anger, because it was almost like an attitude for me. Like, I was just angry. It was just who I was. If you knew me, you knew I had some anger problems. And reshaping it, I'm still really angry. I'm talking to you right now and I'm angry. But my anger is like about injustices and inequities and people feeling hopeless and hearing this and struggling and me not being able to help them, like that stuff angers me. And now I repurpose it and I try and figure out what can I do with that anger that helps me build relationships instead of maybe building my ego or breaking down those relationships. So I repurpose it. And that last prompt is I am hopeful for. So can you finish that one?
Well, back then, I think I was hopeful for a closer relationship and a more intimate relationship. And now I can tell you that I achieved that. And it's worked so much better and it's great. And the respect is mutual and it's wonderful. But it was such a hard thing at the time. There was so much work. And I always say to my daughter that I learned more from our struggles than many other situations in my life because she was that important to me to be different and to do it better.
Yeah, I think what the word that comes to mind for me in I would say my marriage is humility. My husband always says, like, he wants to outserve me, like, just always be, and I'm like, you're crazy, first of all. But the humility that it takes for me to take my tone down a notch is me humbling myself, really. And because you can't hear someone without that humility.
That's right.
And that doesn't mean I'm changing who I am. And I'll always say, like, just because you talk quieter doesn't mean what you said was nice. But it's still, if that's a way that they're hearing, and then that's how I can.
And thinking about anger as puffing yourself up and humility as the opposite, tampering yourself down to have that balance that we keep talking about today. I think the balance of anger and humility is one that we don't talk enough about or think enough about, but you're right.
Yeah, I think anger is so important for relationships to thrive and for our work. It's just how we're channeling it. And are we channeling it? Or is it just crushing everybody?
Or do we swallow it and build resentments and then blow, even 10 years later or whatever, because so many relationships fall apart in years 6 to 10. So I want to go back to the second step because I want to hear you say a little more about risk. It was my personal favorite because I believe fortune favors the bold, a saying from medieval times. And so for me, starting the podcast 10 and a half years ago, at 62 was a big leap. And I know you're referring to emotional risk, but I think vulnerability is an emotional risk that only strong people can do. And so, but I wanted to hear your thoughts about it.
I always tell people, I'm like, if you can't be real with how you feel, how are you going to deal with it? And are you really that strong if you can't be real with how you feel? How strong are you really?
That's right.
If you can, maybe you could punch me in the face, but can you deal with your feelings? And so for me, I agree. I think that being vulnerable that's real courage. That's real strength. And what helps me is knowing that I can be afraid and be brave at the same time. It's like each day, can I just lean a little bit more towards being brave than I was afraid? And so it's like one doesn't exist without the other. And I think we can be like, oh, we're fearful, we're afraid. Okay, yeah, you should be. You got to be, because that's right next to it is your courage, your bravery. They're both there. And if we all have the same amount, if we can imagine that we all have the same amount of fears and the same amount of space for bravery and courage, it's like just which one are we dipping our feet in today? Which one's going to get a little bit more of us today? And not looking at ourselves as a failure when we maybe choose fear that day or in that moment or that relationship, but just remembering our capacity is also courage.
And excitement is always traveling with risk on the other side of fear. Fear erases so much, and the excitement of, you're nervous and scared, but so maybe let's say scared and excitement, part of fear. And I think we erase excitement too easily with doom scrolling and television and kind of numbing ourselves, and instead of opening up and seeing what's around. I'm really worried about young people texting important feelings and vulnerabilities being ignored and or kept talked. I just read 1 in 5 has an AI romantic. High school kid has a romantic. I hope this isn't true. I hope it's a
AI.
false meme. Yeah, I hope it's really not accurate, but an AI romantic figure or friend, 1 in 5 high school students. And I think because then when you're opening yourself up, there's not the uncertainty of what a messy human being is going to do as opposed to a robot or AI person.
It's really difficult for me to see when I go to these schools, people with their heads down on their phone. It's such a joy when people look up and greet you or smile at each other, or give each other a high five. I don't know if people high five as much as they used to, but when you walk into a community and nearly everyone is looking down, it sets a message, and it's a cultural thing, and it I have seen and studied how it is impacting our ability to have depth in our connections. But it's not just the kids, it's the adults too. And actually sometimes adults spend more time doom scrolling because it's there's so many reasons for it, but I think really what happens is you get into a pattern, right? And that's okay. If that's where you're at, don't, this isn't a guilt trip. I do it too. Okay. This is not about being guilty, but it's about opportunity to realign with vision and align with things you value. Yes. And if relationships are one of those things, I have seen and experienced how text messaging can help save a life. So I won't say that it's a bad thing, but I have also seen the opposite, how it could lead people to feel like they shouldn't be alive because of the things that are communicated and that they see, or even they believe they should hurt other people because of what they see and they hear. And it could not even be real. And what happens with when we spend our time, a significant time with screens, any kind of screen, no matter what's on the other side of it, is it's like what you were saying. You're not gonna hear the tone in my voice that's quivering, saying, "I'm okay." You're not gonna hear that. You're not gonna know when I write "I'm okay" that I'm actually not okay. You're not gonna be able to sense me getting frustrated and be able to navigate that in our relationship, how we can work through frustration together, how I could be disappointed at you and still love you to death. So it's those things, a screen, a comment section, it can't love you back. It can't give you that hug. You can't have real time depth and relationship building skills. You can't, because it's delayed and we don't even know what's real. And there's so many things that are taking away from that, the core of a connection, which is genuine interaction.
Yes, that's right. So the third step is release, which I just like to hear you say a little more about what that means. We went through the 5 steps quickly with me, but let's fatten that up a little.
Release was something I learned to do creatively, and I think people who are listening who are like, "I'm not creative," don't turn away, because we are all creative, and there's a capacity within every single person to create something. And for me, it was poetry. I could not talk about how I felt. I had to write about it. And then as I was building a career as a professional speaker, I realized I don't want to tell my story. So what I did is I wrote it in a poem. It was 5 minutes long and I memorized it. And that's how I would share my story in the early days, because I couldn't do it. I could not tell you an actual story. I couldn't do it. So poetry was a great way for me. But I did an event with guidance counselors and mental health professionals, and I was really vulnerable with them. I had just had a baby. I was just like probably weeks post having my baby girl. And I told them I felt really guilty. I was struggling with even being there in that room because I was feeling all the mom guilt times 1,000. And they were just so graceful and so impromptu in the middle of this keynote lecture I was giving. We were like, let's do an exercise where we all write down all the things that are healthy releases for us when we're starting to feel these kinds of feelings. And we came up with a list, and they were super simple and practical. Some people meditate, some people read, some people pray, some people sing, some people dance, some people hop, but they were meant to be practical because they have to be things that we can implement. But we have to
Yes,
have a release.
I like
We
that.
have to have a release because remember that buildup. Got to have a release. Make space.
Yes. The fourth is receive.
Receive is probably the trickiest one for those of us who don't love maybe compliments or maybe struggle with receiving love. And it is a risk to love and to be loved, but we can't receive if we don't take that risk. We have to take the risk to receive. And we may get heartbroken, but who we are afterwards is someone who is brave. So you can't I believe you don't have regrets when you choose to be brave.
I like that. The fifth is repurpose.
Yes. So we spoke about how repurposing furniture can turn into a methodology we use to repurpose the feelings that may be ugly to us. And if our feelings are neutral, if we look at every single feeling we have as neutral, it's what we do with them that applies meaning to them. So this could be something like my mom, going back to her again. She was hit by a drunk driver. My mother, my stepfather, my baby brother, and my baby sister, they were all hit head on by a drunk driver many years ago. It was a very, very horrific accident, not just then, but for many, many years to come. This had a huge impact on our life. And she took sadness, and at some point after it was taking away from her, she decided to turn things around, and she repurposed that pain and that all the things she felt, and she became a volunteer for MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and she would help get to know people in the class and just educate them on things, but also just make sure that she was taking something that hurt her and use it to help prevent these things from happening again. And it's just a beautiful example of how you can repurpose something.
And it is flipping it. It's flipping it and trying to spend in that more hopeful space that we're talking about. So I've been thinking a lot about all the couples I've seen over the decades and how often one partner is hopeful and the other partner has one foot out the door. How can the least hopeful partner become more engaged with hope?
Wow. I think it's first realizing that you don't have to have this humongous amount of hope. Because again, it goes back to, that's for happy people. That's for people who are real positive. Being positive, being hopeful are different. And if you're not in a place where you're really looking forward to that relationship, regrowth, rebuild, it's seeing that it's possible to have one little maybe moment, though. Let's have a maybe moment. So I like to say maybe is a place that isn't yes or no, isn't right or wrong, isn't up or down. It's a place that can help us with a shift when we're feeling blocked. So for example, I was in a not great relationship. There was domestic violence, and I was running away from a situation in the middle of the night. And I called a friend to pick me up. They came and picked me up, and they were taking me home, and they didn't ask me any questions. When we got to my house, they just looked at me and they said, with so much purity and kindness, you could be anything you wanted to be. And at the time, I did, and this is turning into a friendship, right? Love, right? Receiving that even. At the time, I couldn't really receive that because in my romantic relationship, I wasn't able to receive really anything even healthy, right? And in my personal relationship with myself, I wasn't receiving healthy love. So, but it was the first time I was like, maybe. maybe I can be in a healthier relationship. Maybe I can follow a dream. Maybe I can see myself in a better light. Maybe. And maybe didn't change everything, but it made room for possibilities, which is hope. And it was very tiny, but it was enough.
I love that. Maybe.
Maybe I will love them again. Maybe I will not feel this way.
Maybe I've got too much of a negative narrative on a past history that is interfering with me seeing the small changes that might be happening.
Yeah, maybe I'm blocked. Maybe I got a hope block.
Yeah. Many people see hope as a feeling, not a skill. How can we actually train ourselves more to keep building on hope? And the way we train for fitness.
I wish I was a master at the fitness training.
I do 6 miles every morning or walk 7,000
Okay, I'm
steps.
sorry. I
So
can't continue this conversation with someone as awesome as you. I'm feeling really in my feels.
But I'm so much closer to the end of things that I am keeping. And it's all about my brain. You know, I was in this study and they said, "Why do you exercise?" And they said I was the only one who said this answer. And I said, "It's for my brain. I don't want my brain to go. I
don't want my brain to break. I got to build it. I don't want my brain to break. I'm going to go for a walk, not a jog after this. Maybe not 6 miles, maybe 6 minutes. I have no excuse. I really don't.
Yeah, but hope is a skill.
Yes. And I think it's what you just said. You're protecting your brain. It's like when we start to see ourselves of value or a relationship of value, then we start to protect it. And patterns protect things. These patterns of behaviors and these thought patterns can also break things. So when we realize that, we're so freaking powerful. We are so powerful. What we tell ourselves is so powerful. What we speak over others is so powerful. And if we can train that power, and it's not about having hope all the time, it's about being able to harness it again.
Yes. Harness, yes. Use it when we need it. Yes.
Again, it's not
about being Pollyanna.
Yeah. That's not me, okay? And here I am, the ambassador of hope right now, which I never thought I would be, but I realized it is a tool. And it improves our relationships with others, with ourselves, in our career choices. It helps us build a sense of self-worth. It strengthens, even as you were saying, our motivation to do things like build better health all around. There are so many attributes to it, but it's really broken down into these little patterns that you have the power of.
So if there's a couple listening that's feeling hopeless, how can they intentionally cultivate hope together during hard times? Can you give us just a little couple flavor? And I got the maybe thing, so that's something they could do together. Is there anything else in when they're having conversations and they're feeling hopelessness? What can they do to make it more balanced?
I think balance is a key word. You know, one of the things, I'm going to take us back for a second and then we'll go forward and I'll hopefully connect this well. But if you're in that place as a couple, I want to throw out this word loneliness. It can be really lonely to be in that place. It could be very lonely to be in a relationship where you don't feel seen or heard or connected to that person. It can be very lonely. And so I just want to recognize, if that's where you're at, that is a very real place, and that's a very difficult place for anybody. And a lot of people are in that place. They're lonely in a relationship. And so recognizing that, hopefully it can bring us even to just like humanizing it a little bit. Like at the end of the day, like we're together with someone who maybe just feels lonely and alone. And we can't solve everyone's problem. We can't solve all of our partner's problems. We can't. We can't be everything they need. And so we also have to recognize we can't put that expectation on other people. But I think just as much as depth in a marital relationship is important, I believe there's also that loneliness can be maybe not having a healthier relationship with yourself, maybe a friendship or a family member that you feel connected to, not in replace of, but just to establish that pattern of healthy relationships and to break that sting of loneliness a little bit. But I think ultimately, if you're a couple who's struggling to really connect, I think looking at lonely might be a good spot to start.
That is, I think that's true. I do. I think that's true of most couples that are struggling.
And it can be very discouraging and defeating to feel that disconnection. And that discouragement can take us to a dark place. And that dark place can bring us back to an old thought pattern. And that's where despair starts to creep in. So it's kind of just making connections of all of these things and really separating ourselves sometimes from the pressure of the connection and just realizing, hey, maybe I'm lonely. And maybe when I see you on your phone, it's a reminder that I'm alone. And that we can't really ever heal if we don't like identify what it is that's the hurting. And I think loneliness is a huge thing that is hard to explore because it can be really, really hard to admit that as a man, as a woman, as a professional, as an academic, as a child, as anyone. I say loneliness doesn't discriminate. It's just really, really difficult for anyone at any time in their life. But um, it is a very dangerous thing to be in if you stay there and don't have that support system to help get you out.
That's right. And there is an epidemic of loneliness right
Yes.
now. So I think that would be true for many, many, many people. What would you like to share that we haven't covered as our last question?
I would love to share, actually, impromptu. I have some real handwritten stories from people that I work with around the country, and there's educators in here, there's coaches, leaders, business professionals. I'm going to just share a few because I feel like maybe someone listening might be able to relate, and that alone, I feel like helps us get back to a path of hope and of healing. Is that cool?
Okay.
All right, Here we go. And this is in their words, in their handwriting. You're seeing this. You can see the handwriting. This is not my handwriting.
That's right.
I'm going to read it verbatim. This person said, I struggled to get out of an abusive marriage for 10 years because of past trauma and my role in the community. I felt alone, not good enough, like a failure, beaten up. I needed someone to talk to and to help me make a plan, someone to believe in me. I stayed silent because my kids, my job, fear of what he would do to me. I am hopeful for healing, peace, and joy. I'm just going to share a couple more. This person says, I struggled because my husband cheated. I felt ugly, not good enough. I needed to know it wasn't my fault. I stayed silent because I was afraid to be judged. I am hopeful for change and new beginnings. I will read one more. I struggle, so they changed it to current tense. I struggle because I try to help everyone else except myself. I struggle because I do not know how to do nothing. I felt like I am on a constant loop. I needed time to breathe. I stayed silent because I felt like everyone has their own struggles. I am hopeful for being enough. I like to say that you are always enough, you are enough, and enough, that is enough.
I've had people write on the rubber bands, enough.
Yes.
So remind my audience the name of your book and anything else, your website, etc.
So this book is a culmination of just many years of work, personal experience, and the stories you just heard, real stories from people who really inspired me to write this book about hope, because I never thought I would. And it's called The 5 Habits of Hope, Stories and Strategies to Help You Find Your Way. You can find me anywhere online, typically at Dr. Julia Garcia, Dr. Julia Garcia, and you can get the book wherever books are sold. So I would love for you to have some hope and to spread some hope. And thank you so much for having me here today. It has been so much fun. When am I coming back?
Oh, I would love to have you back. Carry hope with you into your week, into your relationships, and within yourself. It's the best traveling companion you could ask for. Thanks for listening, and you can find me on social media at Rhoda on Couples.
Thank you for listening to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and help get the word out. To learn more or connect with Rhoda, visit therapyideas.net.